Live. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. Man, it's great to see you with the palm trees in the background.
Why don't you join me, dude?
No, this is on brand.
Oh,
See,
right. The Steelers brand, the Pittsburgh.
yeah. What's their record again? I forget.
I would say that they're 0-8 personally.
But they're what? 0-8? I think you got that mixed up.
Okay, fine. They're undefeated. Enjoy it
Wait,
while it
so
lasts.
have they lost?
Huh?
They haven't lost.
They have no. They haven't.
Right, have not. Yeah, they have not lost a game.
The Bears started 5-1, and then they've been losing ever since. All right. Anyways, we are here with a live training, and we are here. Let me switch it. We are talking about podcasting, everything podcasting, from equipment to how to edit it. That includes recording it too, and also publishing. So the first thing I want to talk about is like if you're going to make a podcast, and I mean I think everyone should think about making a podcast, or at least definitely do make a podcast, because it's such a great marketing tool. It's like basically creating long form content, and then you can pull pieces out of it and then use all those little bite-sized pieces as little pieces of content, and you can put them all over the place to help grow your brand. um, and it surprises me why I don't have a podcast yet, but I think it's partially because I do these live trainings. And then I plan on taking the little pieces out of these and spreading them around. It's just can't do everything at once. But
Instead of watching the Bears, you can do a podcast because then you can use your time efficiently instead of just wasting time watching another loss.
I would say that about the Steelers because the Steelers are, third joke. Joke about it. Still have Big Ben.
What does that even mean? They still have, okay.
He's like
We have a quarterback that we don't. Anyways, sorry,
he's
we're
like
getting off topic.
56, and I don't
Listen,
know.
we're having a phone call after this. Okay, let's.
Okay. Anyways, so let's talk equipment and what it takes to make one. So, basically, you know, as simple as it gets, all you need is a solid microphone, and if you also want to make it a video series, a webcam or a camera. So, a solid microphone is not something that's like $100 or $200 or anything like that. You can seriously get a little tiny microphone like the one that I'm using. Here, I don't know if hopefully you guys are hearing me through this. This guy. We can see it.
Yep.
We can focus.
Old reliable right there.
This is all reliable, right? This thing it's $30 normally, but because of COVID, I think it makes it like 60. Um,
You should pull up the Amazon thing, but like honestly, I've literally used this for what 4 years now, and I haven't replaced them, and they're $30. The only thing that you have to replace is like the little battery. It's worth it, 100% worth it.
yeah, the tiny little battery. Here, let me adjust the broadcast real quick. The tiny little battery is like I don't know. You can get a pack of like 12 for I don't know $7.
Yeah, it's like nothing. But like as far as like bang for buck, like out of every single piece of equipment that I have, this is easily the biggest bang for the buck. Like
No
the
doubt.
sound quality is great. It's very easy to hook up and to use.
Okay, so this little mic is a what is it? Audio Technica
Like no,
um microphone. I can't remember the exact uh model.
I can
I
see if I
know
have it here.
I know it's in my orders, but dun, dun, dun. Actually, you know what? It's on ParEdits.com/my gear. Look at that. What's up, Rajiri? How you doing, man? Sorry it took me so long to say what's up. Also, headphones. Um,
I got mine right here. I don't know if
hello,
you can see it.
hello.
I got mine too right here.
Oh, are you showing it right now?
I was. It's okay. It's all right. I was, just kind of showing it to myself. It's like my own
It's
self
okay. They can see it.
justification.
I. they, It's on the stream, but I just can't see. Okay, so if you go to ParEdits.com/mygear, you can see all this stuff. And here's the microphone. So yeah, Audio Technica ATR 3350 IS. It's currently unavailable because everyone and their grandmother is making videos at home. But this thing is not expensive. It's super inexpensive. There's alternatives to it. I mean, here's an Audio Technical condenser lav right here. This one's a little more expensive, but it's in the same ballpark. You don't like, just because of the times they're more expensive, but normally they're really cheap microphones. So if you're using one of those, that's like, all you have to do is either plug it into a camera or your phone or even your laptop, because it comes with a little adapter that allows your laptop to read it. Now, it gets a little funky when you plug it into your laptop. Some laptops read it, some don't. If you have issues with that and you have this microphone, definitely reach out to me so I can help you through that, because it gets wonky. But it works perfectly fine through cameras and through smartphones. So you can just use your recorder on your phone and then just go ahead and hit the record button.
I really like using it on cameras because I don't have to sync up the audio afterwards, right?
Yes,
so like as soon as that thing is plugged in, I listen to it. Don't have to sync up. Right now I'm working on a project where I've been using those recorders, Sam. So I have 2 recorders and then 1 line in, and right now I'm literally trying to sync up 3 different audio sources on one video, and it's kind of a pain. But so that's why it's actually very important. Makes it easy on yourself.
Yeah. I mean, just from like recording in general, like whether you're making videos for promotional material or you're working on a podcast, I think like, and if you do have a podcast, it's likely you're gonna like talk with someone else too on some episodes. So like you might have 2 microphones involved, and maybe the microphones are different. But there are ways you can have like a little audio splitter, where it's like one input in, which is what I used to use for my when I was film interviews all the time. I would have an audio splitter with just one cable going into a recorder, and then it splits up and you can plug both mics into those inputs, and then that streams into one recorder. And that's what I used to do all the time. And then sometimes, like, because there's not very many like tri splitters, and then also when you split like data that much, it kind of like hinders the quality a bit. But so like 2 is where I would max it out. But yeah, you can just have a splitter. Like a audio splitter is like, let's see, I'll pull it up on Amazon again. But
it's relatively cheap. I have one. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah. Do you use it a lot, JT?
Not currently, because my other microphone right now, I just need to get a battery. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So right here on Amazon, you can see just like a simple audio splitter where you got one input into the microphone, 3.5 millimeter jack. That's all you need, because that's also what this mic is that we're showing. And then yeah, it splits it up into 2. Cool, Rajiri. Glad you're doing well. We are flying through this. Okay, so if we're talking about, sitting down and recording a podcast, like we've only talked about these mics, right? Now, generally, like when you see podcasts on YouTube, like whether it's Joe Rogan or any other big time podcast where they'll sit down, they have a nice table, and they are doing video, obviously, like that's how you can see it all. So they generally have 1 camera or 3 cameras with close-ups on each one of them. And then they have these big arms, like these microphone arms that like come across, and they have like these pop filters on them. That's what they're called, the little like screen that they talk into, and then the mic is right behind it. That's super useful too. That's very high level, and the microphone that we're talking about today is about like 90% of the quality of that. Like that's why it's so unreal, because if you want this arm and this pop filter and this awesome microphone that's like 6 inches long, like that's got all the technology inside of it to make things sound great, like it's still like only 10% better than the little microphone that we're talking about. And that's because like great podcasts aren't just about having the most crisp audio, unless you're like an audiophile and you like are so obsessed with having the crispest audio like ever, and like you care about the little tiny like pops and clicks that come out of people's mouths and all this stuff. I'm not saying the mic can do that, but like generally, if you're someone who's like that, you'll also go into post production and like adjust like all that stuff like crazy. Um, where like this microphone, like it just picks up the sound well, and I think at the end of the day, that's all you need. You just need the content to be delivered effectively, and little pops and clicks can easily be removed inside of Premiere. Or Adobe Audition. You just go in there and there's a one little drag and drop effect. You do automatic click remover, drop it in, and then your podcast sounds amazing. But first, like you just want to make sure you have a good mic, and you don't have to like break the bank to get one. So yeah, I mean, I would just recommend that microphone. I would just plug it into the phone. You don't have to buy a camera, but if you do want to buy a camera, I always recommend the Sony Alpha 6000. It's also on ParEdits.com/mygear. And also, these aren't affiliate links. They used to be, but they're not anymore. they're just regular Amazon links. So yeah, all these cameras, all this gear is like a perfect setup for podcasting. I even have my Avistor digital voice recorder, which is goes hand in hand with a Zoom recorder. That's what you have, right, JT?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I use this one. It's just some brand that I've never heard of, but I took a chance on it, and it's fantastic. So I would recommend this, and this is pretty cheap too. This is only $47, and you can save an extra $3 if you clip the coupon.
And what's really great too is outside of podcasting, you can use it as a backup recorder for literally anything. Yes. Like I know that recorder, like worst case scenario, you're at like a shoot or something like that. You already have every mic is occupied, and maybe you just want to have like notes to yourself about something, or if you have someone that wants to do like a quick whatever, you have that, and it's very easy to record off of that. So it's super convenient, super small, and it's just another backup resource because, as we know, you want to have backups to everything.
This is a fact. You need to back up everything. Just like, yeah, and all the equipment that you have, like everything has a chance of, either you forget that like the camera stops recording after a little while, or even, the camera could run out of battery, or your microphone could run out of battery. All this stuff could happen that you're not keeping track of. So it's always good to have multiples of things so that you can just pick back up on the content. And you don't have to like pause to replace batteries or fix things. Technical difficulties just ruin everything. So if you can get rid of those by having backups, then you're solid. So yeah, let's talk editing a podcast. JT, do you have any like questions on like equipment for a podcast, like more than that? Or
well, so we have audio. You can get the lav mic that you pointed out there, or there's a million other options if you want that podcasty look, I guess, if you want to call it that, with like the Joe Rogan setup, which is a lot more expensive. But with all of that, you're recording into a Zoom recorder, if you have one. If not, you can just record into your computer. I think I'm more interested to see on the editing side, like what exactly you need to do to make a great podcast. Because right now I'm just using Premiere Pro, and everything that I do is a video-based podcast.
Yeah, it's a good question. We got Rajiri in the chat being a goof. So when it comes to editing, like I've always edited podcasts in Premiere Pro, and the reason is because I've always used equipment that has made the sound of the podcast good enough to where I don't have to adjust it in a specific audio editing software like Audacity, which is free to everybody. And then we also have Adobe Audition. I understand how to use it, but I never have to because inside of Premiere Pro, there's enough audio effects that you can use to remove noise. It's an automatic denoiser. There's an automatic click remover. There's automatic de-esser. So like if S's are very sharp, um, then it'll do that. So Premiere, like they recently added these effects within the last couple years. So these are new effects and they work really well, and I've used them. And I've been working on a podcast for a new client for a while. And she, I just polished her podcast and it sounds great. It sounds just like every other podcast, and she's using the mic that I recommended her, and everything. And so, and she was getting a little bit of background noise, because she was in a room that was bouncing all the noise around. And to fix that, we would put sound panels up, and put them in the corners and some on the walls. You don't have to sound panel the entire booth, but like just in the most important areas, which are mostly the corners, because that's where things bounce. And so like I had to remove some of that background noise in editing, and I did it in Premiere. So when I'm in Premiere, I'm really just messing around with an audio track, just like I would mess around with a video track. And so it's just a sequence with just the audio track in there. I have the waveform showing and everything, and like if I need to cut things out, it's so much easier to cut things out in audio, and kind of like use dissolves to kind of make it seem like there wasn't a cut, than there is video, because you're not seeing things change. But if you're just listening, like you can't tell that there was like a cut, unless like you cut halfway through the word, and that's just a bad edit. But like, yeah, I mean, I would recommend Premiere all the way. I don't have any reason to use Adobe Audition through all the podcasts that I've worked with, and nor do I have for any other like just anything audio, because Premiere just handles it. And I think Audition is good because you can master like music and stuff, and you can have a lot of tracks going. But Premiere, you can have the one track of your recording. You can also add sound effects. You can like do all this stuff, and you can manipulate the sound at such a high quality that you don't need to dive into a tool that's made specifically for that. So yeah, does that help answer it?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think also, like as far as like the structure goes when you're editing a podcast, I think it's really important that right from the get-go, immediately when it starts, for less than 10 seconds, you should have like an episode intro. And what I mean by that is like, hey, this is like, it's like, hey, my name is Sam, and we are doing a live training today on podcasting, yada yada yada. And that should be less than 10 seconds, and then you should have your branded podcast intro start, and that has music, and potentially a narration, and if you're doing a video podcast, you would also have like a nice little edited visual masterpiece of an intro. And then after that, it'll jump into the body of the podcast, and that's just all the talking and all the content that's necessary to spread your message, and then an outro as well. And an outro would have music underneath it, and then also saying like, hey, like if you like this episode, go to this link to listen to more or subscribe, or this, that, and the other thing, having a call to action. So yeah, is that a structure that you've been thinking about potentially for the podcast you want?
Yeah, so obviously not everyone knows this, only you do, but like I am going to be getting into podcast production. And right now it's almost like we have too many ideas to kind of narrow it down. So our biggest thing right now is to narrow down on an overall theme, and then from there create that content type tree, of different ideas that we're going to talk about each week. Also getting together all the procedures, right? So for me and you, it would be like the recording procedures. So if we're not there, or if something happens, someone else can step in for us. The procedures for obtaining guests, so that initial ask or whoever's asking, making sure they understand that. The procedures of once you have the guests, like the thank you and the follow up, or the how you want them to engage on social media, how you're going to engage on social media. All of those things are probably where the most of my focus is, but that's only because I already have the equipment, right? So I don't have to go out and purchase anything. I have everything. It's just getting the plan and the structure, like you were mentioning, down.
Yeah. So I was never in a position where I had to create a process around asking people to come on. And that's because we had someone doing that. That was Sarah.
Yeah.
So she was focused on that. And I know that if you had more specific questions on like what's the best way to ask, she might have answers for you. But
right.
I think when it comes to, just kind of like being in a position where you're basically like creating the procedures for like someone else to help run the thing, if you're not there, or maybe just like create the whole plan of what needs to happen for the podcast. You're right. Like I think you understand like what needs to happen. So what was the so you said reaching out to potential guests, and then there was another one.
Just like like sending a thank you and how they're going to share it.
Yeah.
That I know the title of this is recording, editing, and publishing. So maybe we can talk about publishing.
For sure. So yeah, we'll dive into publishing, but I want to talk about like after
or we
the
can
podcast.
Back. That's fine. That's fine.
No, this is a good segue.
Look, I know this isn't my show. I know I'm a guest. I'm just trying to have like seamless transitions.
This is a segue. So, I like when I was working on the podcast in the past, we would make sure that when it was over, we would have some social. We would like take bites out of it for social content for us, and then we'd also make it for them too. So we design and pull things out for them to make them look good and say, hey, I was on this podcast, blah, blah, blah. So we make the content for them so they can just take it and post it. And then we also would give them a gift. And this gift could be big or small or whatever. But it's just that it's a good way to say thank you if you can give someone something. Maybe it's like a little thing with their name engraved in it or something. That might be a little too expensive, depending. But like it's nice to like have a guest on, and then that guest has like a memento that they were on a podcast, and it's pretty cool because it's published and it's out there, and they had a good time with the interviewer, and it's just kind of like a good memory. It's like a nice little memento. Or you could just give them like, I don't know, a box of chocolates or something. But
where's my gift?
What's that?
Where's my gift?
Well, this isn't a podcast technically, JT. So, and also, your gift is our beautiful friendship. I think that's what it is.
Yikes.
You're like, I'm gonna go now. Anyways. Hey, there's better lighting if you lean over there. So yeah, so gifts are awesome if you can manage that. And also like you can also ask guests if they have anyone in mind that might be a good guest in the future for you too. Yep. It's basically asking for referrals, right? So
yep.
That's totally a thing. And then yeah, as far as publishing goes, right? So the guest should be involved in that, and by involved I mean like you should let them know, give them updates on like when it's going live, and like here are some little sound bites you can post, and you can help advertise for us, and yada yada. So they'll have the information on what's being published when and what materials they can use. Rajiri wants a gift too. Damn it, JT.
Let it spread.
um, so when it comes to publishing, you want to see your podcast, and or video series if you have a video attached to it. You want to see it on every platform, especially every podcasting platform. And now to get it on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play, it's just Google Podcast now, and then iHeartRadio and Stitcher and all these other apps that people use. You need a podcast hosting software, or it's not a software, but it's a SaaS, like it's software as a service. So it's like it's a hosting website basically. And so hosting websites are sites like Libsyn or Buzzsprout or Blueberry. And here I'll share my screen and show you guys what I'm talking about here. Here, JT, do you want me to share my screen for you too?
I have it the live feed up on the separate tab, so I can kind of see both.
Okay. So if we go to, I think I like this one the most. Let's look at Buzzsprout. Sprout. I cannot spell sprout for the life of me. Buzzsprout. Okay, so Buzzsprout, podcast hosting. So we're here. It says podcast hosting and a whole lot more. So basically, it costs between $20 and $40, depending on how many hours of content you're going to post a month. That's how they kind of price things out. $20 to $40 a month. And they hold your podcast data. So like you can see in the picture here, it says, these 3 listed podcasts with the dates next to them. And this is what it's like when you have episodes loaded in. I think, let's see if I can show you. No, I don't think I can. But, you're in there and it said there's a big upload new episode button. Here, I can zoom in here, see if I can show you guys. There's a big upload new episode button, so you click on that, and that's where you throw in your audio file that you've already edited for your podcast. Pop that in there, and then you type in the title, the description, you put in tags, you put in episode number, and in everything else. And then once you have that, you can see in this top navigation bar, you can see iTunes and directories. So you click on that, and it's got step-by-step walkthroughs on how to apply to get on, Apple Podcasts and all the other platforms like Spotify. And it's so simple. Like, some things can take a while, but when I created a brand new podcast just a couple months ago, and we had some places you have to have at least 3 episodes uploaded. But that's not every place. But you do need at least 1 to make a podcast live, especially through Buzzsprout. You can't just have a listing and then with no episodes. So you want to make sure you have 1 podcast live, and then you apply to Apple Podcasts. You just go through their specific website. I think it's like apple.portal.com or something like that. And you go through there, and then you submit your RSS feed. Because what a podcast is, every single podcast that you see out there that's on these podcasting, sites are RSS feeds. And an RSS feed is a dated software that it's essentially like a string of code as a website. And the string of code is it's basically like a message to all these podcast platforms to say, hey, I'm a podcast and I'm titled this and I have this description and I also have these files that I'm currently hosting on my website. So, hey, iTunes, look at my feed and see that I have, everything that you need in order to serve it as a podcast. And so that's just how it is now. It's dated, but it's not a problem. It's just the only way podcasts are working nowadays.
Is that now, can you do, if you have a video podcast, can you still go through the same type of setup, or does that become a little bit different?
So if you have a video podcast, you have the audio side and the video side. So
okay.
I know that you understand how to publish and create videos. So
right.
You're going to treat it exactly like that. Buzzsprout is purely audio side.
Okay.
So there are platforms like Libsyn. If you go to Libsyn, it stands for Library Syndication. This is a very old Oh, they like updated their site and stuff, but it's a one of the original podcast hosting sites where it get like they had the RSS feed going before most people, and so I used to use this for years, and you are able to upload videos to this, and then have it automatically go on YouTube at the same time as your podcast, your audio.
Okay.
So syndication is a fancy word for publishing. So and it's a word that's used all over like books and like articles and journalists. Everyone wants to be like syndicated so that they're out there in the media, right? And they're published under a company. So doing your own syndication is like being your own publisher for a book, but you're doing it for a podcast and videos. And so you can do that now. If you use Libsyn to upload your videos, you're using the bandwidth that you're paying for. So you don't necessarily want to do that. I would just go straight to YouTube or straight to Facebook.
Got it. So like, well, I'm thinking, so like the platform that I would primarily use would be LinkedIn, because it's going to be for the insurance industry, and we know we want it to be on LinkedIn as like the primary platform. So instead of going through and worrying about doing the video and the audio together, you should treat the audio as one thing and the video as like a completely another thing that you have more control over where it's published.
Yes. So video is still going to be straightforward video. So
Right.
Everything you do for that is still the same. You just have to coordinate it. And I coordinate it by creating a master spreadsheet. So on that spreadsheet, I have every podcast like episode and what guests are going to be on, the episode number, the title, the
Right.
link to the show notes page, which is a separate idea that we can dive into. And then also the links to every single syndicated like publishing platform. So iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And I get all those as I'm going through Buzzsprout, following their little tutorials and applying to all of them after I have a podcast episode already uploaded onto my Buzzsprout account / RSS feed, once my podcast is actually real with one episode. And so, so you publish audio separately from video, and you just kind of have two outlets that you manage manually.
Can we dive into like, on the video side of a podcast, different branding elements and things that you can add? So like you look at your live stream right now on YouTube, we have like the ParEdits branding throughout it, right? Yeah. So how you can create that aspect of things, and like what are some starting points or some good things that you can do initially for the first like 5 episodes and test things out?
Yeah. So here, I guess I could just describe it to you. So okay, we're good. So with the most recent podcast that I worked on, it was comprised of only like a handful of things. Okay, so remember that episode intro I was talking about? So like the structure of the podcast is episode intro, and then the podcast intro, and then the episode, so like the body content, and then the outro, right? So there's 4 aspects to the podcast, and of those 4 aspects, specific branding was attached to it. So in the episode intro, it was just the face cam, right? So just the person, and then a lower third. Like I made a little animated lower third that would show up, and it would say her name and her title, basically her brand. So it's just a little blurb in the bottom left. If you see my hand, it would just be like, right there, basically.
Right.
And so that would show up, and it would be animated because it's like the first thing. It's the first impression of the podcast, right? How professional is this podcast? And like that's the real question, like in the back of everyone's mind when they start watching a podcast, no matter what the quality of video. And they will see it based on if there's a motion graphic in the bottom left. And I would recommend, like, you don't have to do a manual animation like I did, but you can do a motion graphic through the Essential Graphics panel on Premiere Pro. I have plenty of tutorials on that on my YouTube channel. But you could just drag and drop a nice little lower third in there. And that directly speaks to like, hey, we're trying to put out really nice content, and we care. So we have, an editor working on this. And then with that lower third, you then transition the entire screen into a nice edited intro. And throughout the intro, you make sure you have little text popping on screen that describes the type of stuff that happens in the podcast. So like the last podcast I worked on was about business and life made simple. And so it was basically like talking about like, like investing and, just like all sorts of little tips and tools to make business and life simple. I mean, it's very generalized, but like, marketing and sales and organizing, like these words would kind of pop on screen. And it's an easy like tool that you use in your messaging in your intro to tell people, hey, like the podcast covers all these topics, and I'm not telling you per se in a narration, but I'm showing you. And now there's also a difference there, right? Like, how do you want to communicate on video versus how do you want to communicate on audio? You might have two different intros. They might sound differently on your video and your audio version. But yeah, so you want to make sure that, whatever the lower third looks like in the beginning is on the same brand level as the intro, and the text popping up, same font, same colors, same theme. And brand guides are super useful in this regard. Where you can like have like a scope of exactly what you're going to use. And if you want to know more about brand guides, you can totally ask me about that. But basically, you want to, yeah. And then with that lower third that showed up in the bottom left, it doesn't have to be, you can combine, you can have their name pop up and also a little brand plug. I like to call it a little bug. So like a little bug of your logo in the bottom left or the bottom right. I usually suggest bottom left of the video frame. And throughout the whole body content of the video, it's there. So the whole video is branded with that little thing in the bottom left. Instead of just a plain video, the brand is always there. And it's subtle and it's not obnoxious. And so the last podcast I worked on, the woman had a personal brand. So her name was her logo. So I animated her name, and that was the first thing you saw as the lower third come up. And then that lower third stayed on throughout the whole video, but it was underneath the intro because you don't want that bug on the intro because the intro is its own like piece. And then throughout the podcast, you have her name in the bottom left. And then in the outro, it's kind of like a version of the intro, but with like buttons telling people to subscribe to iTunes or Spotify or on YouTube or on, follow on Facebook, stuff like that. Calls to action, basically. So yeah, I hope that answers your question there.
No, it does, for sure. And then when you're going and editing a video, is there any other software or things you like to use to make sure everything's like fluid and makes sense?
When I'm working on the video?
Yeah, and just like the whole podcast setup.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like I just like to keep it simple. So I just keep the whole structure and organization and everything inside of Premiere Pro. And so that's where I edit the video, that's where I edit the audio. Everything is just inside of Premiere in one project. And then the process that I usually go through is I'll edit the video first. And then once the video is done and that's like the project is complete, then I just pull the video out and I create another sequence and I use the audio. So it's like I'm editing the video and audio at the same time, but I export the video, as the completed project, and then I just export the same project. Sorry, my kitty is making noise. I export the same project. And I just do audio only.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah. So these hosting platforms, like it's crazy to me. Like podcasting. Here, let me flip this back. Podcasting is like it's really cheap for what it is. Like minus the video aspect of it, right? Like I mean, you can use a webcam. Like just like if you want good video, you usually have to spend like $1,000 or less, and if you want better, you have to spend even more. Unfortunately for JT and I, we're both videographers by trade, so we have all of the cameras that we need. But if you're just like someone who doesn't do video, like making a podcast costs $20 a month, and then you don't even have to use Premiere Pro to make your podcast. If you do audio only, you can use Audacity, and Audacity is a free audio editing software, and I used to use it when I first started working on like my very first podcast. And so it's just this audio editor. It's not super user friendly, but like it seems straightforward, right? Like you see the pause and play and stop and record button, and then you got like, you got scissors here so you can cut out certain areas. Like, it's not perfect, and it's not as straightforward as Premiere in my opinion, but it gets the job done. And it's free, and it's been free forever. And I think it's probably way better off now too. Like the website's all updated. It used to look like it's from the 90s, and now it's, it looks good. So,
wrong with being from the 90s, Sam.
Hey, the 90s was a long time ago in terms of technology.
These kids don't even know how easy they have it. Yeah.
It's very true. So yeah, it's still crazy to me how cheap it is to have a podcast out there, because like having a podcast is so useful. It takes a lot of work to get the most use out of it, because you got to pull sound bites out, you got to make those social posts, you got to make them look, on brand, you got to stay consistent, you got to have all those brand elements going. Sometimes you have to create them all, sometimes you have to hire someone to make all those for you. Sometimes you have to ask someone to make a little jingle for you, which is awesome actually. Like if I would recommend everyone like hire like someone on Fiverr for like $50 to make a little jingle for their podcast. Like it's such a thing, and it makes you more unique. Instead of just pulling a royalty-free song, you can actually ask someone to do like just simple lyrics. And that's, I actually got that idea mostly from the previous podcast I worked on. And it's funny because Jen, my girlfriend, and I, we like, she would hear me editing the podcast all the time, and she'd have the jingle stuck in her head. So it's like sometimes like these jingles can be good, and that's a good thing. Like you should have it stuck in your head. It should be in a nice sound that you want to have representing your podcast. And sound is just as important as visual when it comes to branding.
Yep.
So, and yeah, someone specifically
for me, like,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, but not really, because no, but like I think for me it makes the most sense. So you think about the position I'm in right now. We're in quarantine, so like fresh content and things like that have to be really, really planned out, and like you can only have a certain amount of people in a certain amount of space. There's the cleaning before, there's the cleaning after, there's wearing masks throughout, all those things, right?
Right.
What a great tool to start a podcast right now, because if you need sound bites, if you need content right now, how easy is it? I mean, we're creating one right now. We're in our homes, like we're just talking, right? You can take, like you said, little snippets and things like that, and then reuse it for so many other things. It's ridiculous. So if you're either one, just a straight up content creator and you're hurting for stuff, this is a great tool. If you're working on behalf of a brand like I am, this is also an amazing tool, probably even better than if you're just creating content by yourself. And it's an amazing tool because this is some serious stuff that like, it just makes your life easier, that you can pull stuff randomly and have little things here and there. So for me, it makes things easier whenever I'm working off of a schedule and a social media calendar, to have things already set in stone where I can just pull. I have an upcoming podcast next week. Great. Let's post 3 clips from the previous podcast teasing this one. There's 3 posts plus the podcast 4. There's a week.
Yeah. I mean, I have I don't have an actual calendar, but I have a content calendar, and I planned out everything that I do for my live trainings, because it's almost like a podcast, but it's not. And I feel like I can translate it. But the reason why I don't like turn this into a podcast is because everything I do is so visual. I mean, I do everything video and design. Like you can't really like. You want me to describe frame by frame what's happening like in the video
Yes.
that I'm working on?
Yes.
All right, well, I'll get right on that, JT. But I have. Let me switch my screen here. Keep switching back and forth. So I have. I go. This is how I organize my life, my Asana. So if I go in here, I can show you guys.
Hashtag not sponsored.
I can show you here. I'll shrink this. But basically, you can see my calendar here. Let me switch this. There we go. So you can see like I have week 1, week 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I can load more. And so these are all the topics that I've covered. And so like next week I'll be working on color correcting. The week after that I want to do transition, sound design, content strategy, all this stuff. So I have all this stuff planned out, so it doesn't take too much time to like I could do all the work ahead of time when it comes to a podcast. Oh, see you later, Roger. Glad you can make it. He just kind of popped off, and I can't remember when that message came in, but yeah. So like having a content calendar and doing everything beforehand is super useful, and that's also what we would do. Like when I was doing my brand strategy program with my previous client, we like I did keyword research for her, right? So I have a strategy on how to do keyword research. I created a blueprint for people to do it themselves. Links in the description for that if you want to check it out. But it's basically teaching people how to reverse engineer their YouTube channel, and it's not just about YouTube; it's also about Google. And so when you learn about Google and what people are looking for, it kind of validates the content that you want to put out there. So if I learn that someone's looking for a logo animation, I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm going to make logo animation videos because I like doing that. And it's proved to be something that people really enjoy when I put it out there. So like that's what we did for her podcast. And through that keyword research, we were able to look at all those keywords, the ones that have the highest search volumes, the ones that have the highest like overall score based on these. It's like a conglomerate score basically based off of these softwares like vidIQ and TubeBuddy, which are big keyword research tools for YouTube and Google, like I said, because YouTube and Google are the same. And so we looked at those keywords, and we would use those keywords to create titles. And we would create titles of the upcoming podcasts that happen twice a week. And we would go all the way until 2 months ahead of time. And we would just sit there for about 30 minutes and be like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. So she was like, oh, I want to talk about this. And I'm like, okay, well, we have keywords for that too. So we can just kind of line that up and pop that in and schedule that in. So those keywords are good because when you put out that podcast, people will not only know what you're talking about, but they're also already searching for it. And hopefully there's not a lot of competitors doing it, because if there's not, then you'll early on you'll have a higher chance of being served to people who are looking for it. Because that's the thing, even though you can do keyword research and you can have this podcast that has great content, if you start with 0 views, you're going to have 0 views for a little while unless you push ads to it or you already have a following where people are going to gravitate towards it automatically. But if you don't have a following on YouTube or any of those other platforms and you're trying to grow from scratch, you're going to have to wait. You got to keep putting that good content out. And what's going to happen is some people are going to be served it. Some people are going to watch it. Some people are going to react to it and say, hey, this is good. And when those few people, those are your golden stars, when those few people say, hey, I love this, it's going to tell the platforms that it needs to be served more, because obviously some people like it. So why not put it out there if people like it? Because that's what keeps people on the platform, right? So that's why we did the keyword research, and it created our whole content calendar really easily. And also we can decide what guests we want to have on based on the content. So it just kind of all it works hand in hand for growth and for putting out good content, being organized and structured, and creating the least amount of work by doing it all on a highway instead of taking side streets, right?
Efficiency.
Yeah.
Because trust me, trying to create individual things, It's very time consuming, but being able to create one thing and then repurposing it 15 different ways is a lot easier.
Absolutely. Do you, JT, do you think like this, like everything that I've been talking about is something that is easy to implement for you?
Definitely. I mean, so like we keep mentioning, it's nice to not be able to have to worry about spending any money on equipment, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's, as we've shown, there's some cheap sources out there. I think I have a better game plan now going into what constitutes like an entire episode. So like the framework. Um, so having that intro, then the body, then the outro, knowing how to and what guests should expect, like different ways to maybe entice them. Or I think the coolest thing you said, and this is something I didn't even think about, was giving them the content for them to like go ahead and post. Like I think that's a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, it's very
Because
unlikely that they're gonna post on your behalf, and it's gonna be good. So,
right, right, exactly. If you leave it into their hands, no offense. I mean, I'm sure there's some very good people out there that are very, very savvy with video and what things are important. But yeah, if you can take away the guesswork, and then also, especially when you're working with brands, that branding is going to be all over the video itself. So I know for us, and when I say us, the client that I work with for the insurance industry, um, it it makes sense because there's so many different other providers out there. Something as simple as coming across a LinkedIn post from a podcast and then having a salesperson just reach out to them maybe after they posted the podcast. You have a lot more, you gain a lot more authority and a lot more trust with that, as opposed to someone just being like, hey,
yeah,
do business with us. Like, what?
it's so easy to invite someone onto a podcast, talk for a
Yep.
little while, talk each other up for a
It's
bit.
not time consuming either. I mean, look, we're doing this right now. It's been 52 minutes. That's not hard. It's going to be posted after this. There's nothing you have to cut, edit, all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, if you want to, you can, but you know, it's there for us.
Yeah, and so it's like not only is it easy, but I think it's also people understand it's inherently easy. So if that's the case, um, that means like people can recognize when people are trying harder. Like they just do, and like it's also the trying harder. Having a podcast platform and everything, inviting guests and like make sure people are happy. Like the trying harder aspect of that is all of it is like 100% just relationship based, and it's so you get so many points in that relationship if you give them a gift, if you give them social content to post, if you give them pictures of themselves where they look really good, if you give them all this stuff where they feel like, oh, I could use that, oh, like this is awesome, I'm so glad you gave this to me, I don't have to do any work for that, like this is so cool, like, and so like they're just excited because everyone loves like talking about themselves, or like everyone loves like being in a position where they can make themselves look good. And so if you can give something, a recording or pictures of somebody, or a quote that they said that makes them look really good, they're like, oh my god, I'm posting this, you know. And it's not even just about the guest, it's about the company too. Like that
Yep.
material, when you have the guest on, that guest is representing that company, and then you can give it to their company, and that company will post on behalf of whatever that very important person was, of that company. And it's just partnerships, um, and it's just if you do all of that, it takes time, but it's worth it in the end if you want to keep that person around.
Absolutely. Cool. I'm excited to get started with this, to be honest with you.
That's awesome. So you have one, do you have two other inquiries, or?
Yeah, so I have three total. Um, one is like a confirmed, like it's happening, then two inquiries. So, I'll be able to speak a little bit more knowledgeable now.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I mean, if you need any help with it, obviously, I'm your guy. But
I'll think about it.
I enjoy working on podcasts and keeping them organized and efficient and having a strategy around it. So,
Right on.
always happy to talk about it with you.
Cool.
All right. Well, JT, we took 55 minutes. How's that feel?
Like it took 55 minutes.
Yeah, you know what that feels like?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
We usually do it every week, so it's like,
All
I
right,
actually, to
well,
be honest with you, I was really nervous that I wore this shirt previously, but if I remember correctly, it was a different shirt, but I was still like paranoid. So you know how like whenever you make like videos and stuff and maybe like you're on camera, or let's say you're just taking photos, you go on vacation, right? But you typically pack like the same similar clothes. I always have this thing where like, oh crap, did I wear that? Like, let's say we're going to like Montana. It's like, okay, did I wear that on the last trip? Like, am I gonna bring that with me? Like, and then like you go and look and like you have this same exact like money shot, right? Or like the cool picture, the cool hike that you went on to get like at the end. Then you're like, crap, I literally just posted a picture on my last vacation of me wearing this exact outfit. It's like one of my like biggest fears, and I'm not even like a fashionable person by any means. I just like I don't know, I feel like
GT,
people might judge.
I think anytime you buy a shirt, you just need to buy multiple colors of
Sure, yeah,
it.
that makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier.
So this is the blue trip. This is the red trip.
Right.
You know, you just split it up.
Right.
I have photos where I'm like, I didn't realize I was wearing the same exact thing, pants,
Yeah.
sweater, and all. Like,
Yeah. You got to get those color contacts too that people wear. So be like, hey, my eyes are green. And
yeah, you can just wear the same outfit, just switch the contacts up.
yep. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks, man. I'm glad that we could run through this together.
Sure.
And it's always exciting for me to talk about podcasts and getting things going because it's one of the best content pieces people should put out there, especially because it's so freaking cheap to make good videos. It's really expensive, but having audio is it's a great tool because you could just make like little animations and post them on social media or put quotes and attach a soundbite to it. Anyways,
We'll have to do like a follow-up episode of like all the questions I have now that I've done an episode.
yes, we gotta do that for sure.
I'll be like, I'll be like over here like sweating and stuff. Like, Sam, help!
Oh, what's up, Frizzo? You're kind of late. We're wrapping it up, but you can always jump back in. But yeah, like, do you know when you're doing your first episode?
So I know everything's going for a 1/1 launch.
January
because
1st.
Yes. I'm utilizing the time between now and then to at least record 3 episodes. So like obtain all the structure, all of the branding, and then look at the first 3 topics we're going to do, get the 3 guests. And then I don't know if I'm hosting or if we're going to have someone else host. So just getting all of those things in the gear, practicing it a few times, that's going to take at least a month or so.
Yeah, if you're the host, JT, then you got it in for you, because that's another job.
I did trim up. I don't know if you noticed. I was rocking a really haggard, bushy, disgusting beard.
Looks clean, man.
Well, I think it's because I was doing a lot of editing recently, right? So like I had like this big bushy beard because I always wear like hoodie and like pull it over my head and stuff and like go into this like grungy like all I care about is the video.
Yeah, no,
we're getting way off topic.
No, yes. It's cool. I mean, if you become the host, you're gonna have to get haircuts. You're gonna have to wear the right clothes. You can't wear the same clothes every time you show up. You're gonna have to shave every time you go on. You're gonna have to prepare your questions. You're gonna have to make sure that you have the energy. Get that coffee going. Right?
Well,
so you got the
coffee will be present.
But like all that takes extra time, so you just it's a whole thing. But I mean, you can do it. It's just something to prepare for.
For sure.
So yeah. All right. Well, that's about all the time we have. Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone. Enjoy your time on vacation. See, you're already.
So. I'm already here, so thanks. Appreciate.
I'll be here working. So.
On the bridge.
Yeah, have you seen the bridge? I mean, there's like, we got some serious problems right here. And then we got to repave the pavement here. So yeah, I'm going to be at it all day today.
Damn. I thought you were working on podcasts, but I guess not. I don't even know why we talked about podcasts when you got your hands full on the bridge.
The list never ends, Sam, of things I have to do. So.
All right. So that's all we got today. JT, so glad that you're here with me talking about all this stuff. It's always a pleasure when we can do this together. Yeah, that's all we got. And if anyone has any questions on podcasting, totally reach out to me or JT, because he's going to be working on more podcasts coming up soon. And yeah, and then also, like, if you're looking for free courses on how to create video content for your brand, links in the description. Also, that growth blueprint teaching about keyword research is also down in the description. So everything that you need for helping your brand grow on YouTube. And I think I could see myself making a podcast guide down the road too. So all that stuff is going to be available, always in the description. So thanks for joining, and JT, we will see you and everyone else later.
Hey, we'll see ya.
Hey, we'll see you when we see you.
No, but we'll see ya. All right. We'll see ya. Bye, everyone.
Yeah,
okay. Goodbye now.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye now.
Bye now.
All right, see ya.